Hey 7th graders, welcome to video lesson 2.3 part C. In this lesson we are going to divide rational numbers, and in particular we'll be dividing decimals. Please take out your multiplication chart because we will definitely need it. Just a quick reminder up here at the top, when we are multiplying or dividing, whether it's integers, fractions, decimals, if the signs are the same, the product or quotient is positive. If the signs are different, the product or quotient is negative. Remember, these rules only work for two numbers at a time. So let's get started. We have -9 divided by 7 2/10. So what we need to do is set this problem up using our division house. And remember, it's -9 is being divided by 7.2. So our -9 goes in here. I usually worry about the sign at the end. So if you notice, I'm not going to put a -9 in here. I'm just going to write a 9. And 7.2 is our divisor. So what we need to do, if you'd notice here, our divisor cannot be a decimal. So we need to get rid of this decimal point by moving the decimal point to the right, or in this case we're technically multiplying by 10. So if I multiply 7.2 by 10, that becomes 72. The decimal moves to the right. If I take 9, since the decimal point is at the end, and I need to move that to the right once, I move this to the right once because I moved the divisor once. If I move the divisor twice, I would move the dividend twice. What I like to do once I move the decimal point, I like to rewrite the problem so it's nice and neat and easy to read. So I technically now have 90 is being divided by 72. I have a little gift here for you. Please be sure you write this down in your notebook. I wrote down all the facts for 72. 72 times 1, all the way down to 72 times 9. So how many 72s can go into 90? Just once. So now let's subtract. 10 minus 8 is 2. 8 minus 7 is 1. Now we add a decimal point and a 0. We bring down. 72 into 180 is 2. 2 times 72 is 144. Alright, I'm just going to take this problem here and move it over so we have some more room to work with. There we go. So now we're going to subtract. 8 becomes 7. And the 0 becomes a 10. 10 minus 4 is 6. 7 minus 4 is 3. We could add another 0 and bring down. 72 into 360, I have 5. 5 times 72 is 360, and there's 0 left over. My decimal point goes straight up. Notice that 72 does not go into 9. 72 goes into 91 whole time. One of the major issues I see with a lot of you is where you put your decimal point, so please be careful. So my final solution, since I am dividing a negative by a positive, my solution is -1 25 hundredths. Next example. In this example, we're going to take 2 and divide it by 8.2. So let's set up the problem. 8 is the dividend. It's being divided by 2.2. So remember what I told you for the first example. My divisor needs to be a whole number. The dividend can be anything, but the outside divisor needs to be whole. So if I'm at 2.2, I can times it by 10 or one decimal place to the right and move it once to the right to get 22. My number on the dividend is 8, so the decimal point's at the end. So since I moved the divisor 1 unit to the right, I move my dividend 1 unit to the right and fill it in with a 0. So what I really have is 80 being divided by 22. Ooh. 22, not 2.2. So I'm just going to clean up my screen here a little bit. Okay, both of my numbers, if you take a quick look, are positive. So my solution is going to be positive. That's something you always want to be aware of. What kind of numbers are you working with? All right, so once you rewrite the problem, this is the problem you're working with right there. If you add a decimal, more zeros, this is the question you work with. We just rewrote it. So how many? Another present for you. I wrote all your 22 facts down, so please be sure in your notebook you write your facts for 22. So how many 22s go in 80 without going over? And the solution would be 3. So 3 times 22 is 66. Please line up your numbers carefully. We need to subtract. 10 minus 6 is 4. 7 minus 6 is 1. Now I add a decimal point and a 0, and I can bring that down. 22 into 140 without going over is 6. 6 times 22 is 132. We need to borrow. 10 minus 2 is 8, so we can add another 0 and bring down. That was weird. Zero. So 22 into 80 without going over is 6. Nope, that's not right. Sorry about that. Into 80 would be 3. We get 66. Let's subtract. We get 14. We can add another 0 and bring down. You guys starting to see a pattern here? 22 goes into 140 without going over 6 times. It looks like from here that the 3 and the 6 will repeat. Decimal point goes straight up. My final solution is positive 3 and 63 hundredths repeating. Okay, the best advice I can give you when you start questions like this is write down your multiplication facts like I did here. Take a minute to write this list down. I just keep adding 22. Plus 22 more is 44. Plus 22 more is 66. And write yourself your list. That way, when you do the division problem, do you notice how effortless it was? That's because we weren't worrying about our multiplication facts because we had all the numbers written in front of us. Next example. We have negative 3 and 45 hundredths divided by negative 15. Again, pay attention to your signs. I try to get rid of the signs up front if I can. I have a negative and a negative. So that means my solution, my solution is going to be positive. So I have 345 being divided by 15. So my question to you is, do I need to move the decimal in the divisor? This is your divisor. And hopefully you are saying no. It is okay that there is a decimal point in here. That's okay. The only place where we can't have a decimal point is on the outside, the divisor. So since the number is already whole, I took the liberty to write the 15 times tables for you, so please write them down. The 15s I find to be easy. I actually remember the even ones, because the even ones are counting by 30s, 30, 60, 90, 120. So the ones in between have to be half. So half of 30 is 15. Half of 60, not half, I'm sorry, less 60 is 45, less 15, 75, less, where am I going? Less 15, it's 105. And then from 120 to get 9, just add 15 more, because we're increasing by another set of 15. So let's move forward. How many 15s can go into 3? None. How many 15s can go into 34? Well, let's take a look at our chart without going over. The solution is 2. 2 times 15 is 30. Subtract, I get 45. Look how easy these problems become when the facts are in front of you. 15 into 45 is 3 times. 3 times 15 is 45 with 0 left over. This means my decimal is terminating. Okay, decimal point goes straight up. My final solution, a negative times a negative is a positive. My final answer is 23 hundredths repeating. If you have a question, please put a question mark next to this question and we can address it in class. Next problem. I have negative 18 hundredths divided by negative 3 thousandths. This is a fun question. So let's set up our division house. Again, I worry about the signs at the end. I don't put them in the division house. We need to move our decimal point because our divisor needs to be a whole number. So this time I need to times 100. I need to move it 2 places to the right. So if I move my divisor 2 places to the right, I move the dividend the same number of places. So if my divisor became a 3, moving my dividend twice to the right, it became 18. So my problem is really 18 divided by 3. I'm just going to clean this up here for you. So how many times does 3 go into 18? This is a very basic one. Solution is 6. 6 times 3 is 18 with 0 left over. Now we need to determine the sign. What is a negative divided by a positive? I hope you're saying negative. So my final solution is negative 6. Okay, next example. All right, here is an exceptionally large question. Before we even get started, please take a minute and write these facts down. So with these facts written down, we'll be able to easily answer the question that we have written in front of us. So remember, it's 8 and 722 thousandths, which is our dividend. I'm not sure why that is happening, so let's start again. 8 and 722, and it's being divided by 3 and 56 hundredths. Could our divisor, could it be anything but a whole number? And hopefully you are all saying no. We need to move the decimal twice to the right, which is the same as multiplying by 100. So if I move this decimal twice to the right, I move the dividends decimal twice to the right. So what I really have is 872 and 2/10, and it's being divided by 356. So let me clean up this screen a little bit for you. All right, there you go. The page is just cleaned up a little bit more, so we have some more space to work with. So what we're going to do now is divide and figure out how many times, oh my gosh, and figure out how many times 356 can go into Sorry, I'm a neat freak. Okay, so everyone should have written their 356 times tables, as you see up in the top right. So let's divide our decimals. We want to figure out how many times 356 can go into 872. And if we take a look at our chart without going over 872, our solution is 2. So 2 times 356 would be 712. Make sure we subtract 0, 6, 1, and now we can bring our 2 down. Now we need to figure out how many times 356 can go into 1602 without going over. And if you take a look at your list, the solution would be 4. 4 into 356 is 1,424. We need to borrow. The 0 becomes a 9. This becomes a 12. We get 8, 7, 1. We could add a 0 and bring down. How many times does 356 go into 1780? Looking at your facts, we get the solution of 5 with a remainder of 0 when you subtract. Your decimal point goes straight up. Remember, we are dividing a negative by a positive number, so our final solution is negative 2 45/100. All right, now we're on to our last example. 12 42/100 divided by negative 4 8/10. Before we begin, you are welcome to write your 48 facts listed up at the right. We're going to take 12 42/100 and divide it by 4 8/10. Remember, we deal with the signs at the end. Since our divisor is not a whole number, we need to multiply by 10, so move the decimal once to the right. If we take 12 42/100 times that by 10, the decimal moves to the right 1 unit. So we have 124 2/10 divided by 48. And using the facts you have listed to the right, how many 48s can go into 124 without going over? And your answer is 2. Be sure when you put the 2 down, you put it over the 4, because 48 cannot go into 1, and 48 cannot go into 12. So we have 48 times 2, which is 96. So let's subtract. We have 28, bring the 2 down, and we're looking at 282. So how many times could 48 go into 282 without going over? The solution is 5. 5 times 48 is 240. Let's subtract. Okay, here we could add a 0 and bring down. How many times can 48 go into 420 without going over? And the solution is 8. Oops. 8 times 48 is 384. Let's subtract. We get 6 and 3. Let's add another 0 and bring down. How many times does 48 go into 360? So we're looking at 48 into 360, and we get a solution of 7. 7 times 48, if you look at your chart, it says 336. 336. And let's subtract. We get an answer of 24. We could add another 0 and bring down. And now we're looking at 48 into 240, and we get a solution of 5. And we get a 0 as a denominator. Decimal point goes straight up. If you take a look at the example, Where is the example? We are dividing a positive by a negative. Since the signs are different, our final solution is negative 2 and 5,875 10,000ths. Alright guys, congratulations. You completed video lesson 2.3 part C. Be sure you go to the website and complete the online assessment. Figure